Hey you guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin'. Today we're talking swim bait fishing for summertime bass. Swim bait fishing is not complicated. Literally anybody can catch a big bass with the swim bait. Granted, it takes time and commitment to do it consistently. But the concept of a big bait catching a big fish is not very complicated. Throw them out, wind them back, eventually a big one eats them. Now, with that said, there's obviously a lot of nuances, subtle things that make huge differences. The right gear, the right baits for the job, and in summertime especially, being dialed in with the right baits becomes critical. If I could sum up summertime swim bait fishing in 2 words, it would be topwater and boot tails. All of my summertime swim bait fishing falls into one of those 2 categories. This is not the time of year that you'll see me throw a ton of wedge tail style baits, you know, Huddleston, Savage Gear style baits. I could count on one hand, well, maybe 2 hands, the number of fish I've caught on a Huddleston or a wedge tail in the summer months. Now, granted, some of that handful of fish have been in excess of 12 pounds, but it's not a lot of bites. This is not the time of year where the wedge tail shines. Most places, a boot tail is the deal. This isn't even the time of year that I throw a glide bait a ton. I really get away from the glide on my fisheries in the summertime. There are places in the country where a glide bait's really effective in summer. But for me, boot tails, that's where it's at. And then of course, topwater, big wake baits. In fact, let's start here. Let's talk hard baits, and then we're gonna set these aside and we'll focus in entirely on boot tails, how to fish them, where to fish them, how to adapt to different situations so that you can catch these big fish in summer. Because historically, swim baits were considered like a fall, winter, early spring thing. That was how it began. And then it just started to grow from there. And I think where that came from was fisheries that were very trout oriented, right? The trout were in the parts of the lake where the bass were during those cold water months. The rest of the time they were offshore, super deep, that sort of thing. But swim baits, I mean, it's an all day, everyday deal. It works year round, it really does. And understanding how to adapt the baits is the difference between frustration and crushing fish. Because I can go out in the summertime and catch a swim bait fish every single day. It truly, once or twice a year, we'll put out a video, something to the effect of like, swim bait fishing is easy. And we do that because, one, it's true. Swim bait fishing is not complicated. We want people to understand that it really is easy. If they're struggling, they're probably overthinking it. But we also want people to recognize that they can do it too, and to not settle for struggling. Because there's this subculture in swim bait fishing of like, get out there, grind, someday your turn will come, just keep going. And I don't think that's accurate. I mean, it works, but it's not a fun way to fish. And understanding when to throw the right bait cuts your time down by like 98%. I don't throw a swim bait all day, but I pick up a swim bait at the right times and I catch big ones doing it. And you can too. It doesn't have to be complicated. So let's start with wakes, then we'll go to boot tails. So we'll just talk through the kinds of places that will throw big baits in the summertime. You know, the wake, the concept here is incredibly simple. Giant fish split in the summertime. Some go shallow, some go deep. Right now, I'm talking shallow. These fish that have pulled up around cover in the summertime, so be that grass beds, docks, shallow fish, the hotter it gets, they want overhead cover during the day. Okay, so they're going to be in places where they can get in shade, whether that's up along a bank where they can get up in that shadow, whether that's tucked up underneath a grass edge, or whether that's up underneath a dock. They're going to find a way to be around shade during the heat of the day. That is incredibly helpful for you as the angler, because that cuts down the where you fish drastically. You're just running shadows. That's where you want to fish a wake bait. Just run the shadows. Now, early and late in the day, you can just start covering water. Just throw this thing out, just wake it. Clack, 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 clack. The fish will come to you. But high sun, midday, they tuck in those shadows. You know right where they are. If you've got a bank with 5 shadows on it, you've got 5 places to throw a wake bait. It's really simple. Now that's the shallow fish. Deep fish will also eat a wake bait. Now that sounds silly, right? Deep fish, topwater. In reservoir situations, clear water situations, the way bass get shade is they sit out around the color line. The color line is, we've talked about this in a lot of videos, but effectively it's where the sun comes down, hits the water, and it penetrates and hits bottom, okay? Where that stops happening out off the bank, and depending on water clarity, that could be 8 feet of water, 25 feet of water, 75 feet of water. Depending how clear the water is, you'll get to that spot where the sun no longer directly hits the bottom. And the water will shift from a light color. When you're looking at it with your eyes, the water shifts from a light color to a dark color. Right where that transition is from light to dark, there's nothing physically there. It's just you're no longer seeing the bottom through that water. Right there on that color line, fish will suspend right there, and they'll move up and down according to how far out of that direct sunlight they want to be. So bass might be suspended 5 feet down on a color line. They might be suspended 50 feet down on a color line in the heart of summer. But those fish love to look up. They hunt up. They're suspended. When something goes over the top of them, they come up and get it. A wake bait is deadly effective. I have caught so many wake bait fish in 50 to 150 feet of water. Now I know that's mind-blowing to some people. Other guys are like, yep, that's how I catch them too. 50 to 100 feet of water on the color line. So out off, say this far offshore, and I'm throwing parallel to shore in 80 feet of water, but the bass are only 15 or 20 or 25 feet down. They have no problem shooting up through clear water to blast that wake bait. Now, let's talk about the 2 baits. I've got 2 of them here for you. This guy, this is the bait that Tim and I designed. This is the Tactical 210. This is Tim and I's wake bait. We built this with River to Sea. There are some things about this bait that we did very specifically. Now I'll keep it short for you, but in the video description, I'm gonna link all this stuff. I'll link all these different baits. I'll give you our favorite colors for different situations, the exact gear that we're throwing them on, all that stuff. Depending on the device that you're on, under the video, you might need to click more. You might need to click the 3 little dots and then click the 3 little dots again, or it may just be an open description. But below the video, all of this stuff is linked for you. You just have to figure out how to open it. The wake bait. We built this bait to push on a slow, steady retrieve an incredible V of water on the surface. It pushes super hard. Offshore, when you're V-waking that thing out there in open water, that V catches those fish's attention, and then they look for where it's coming from, and they spot that bait and they come for it. So it's got a very strong V. It's also extremely loud as it's clacking. It's got a really good sound. We had it sit, most wake baits sit really nose down when they're pushing. This bait sits very flat, and that helps with hookup ratio. They get both hooks. You can also walk it, pop, 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 and it'll chop. And it's loud. We do that when the wind is really blowing and we want to stand out. But the biggest thing I want to explain about this bait, do you see how big this bait is? It's a full 8-inch bait. Well, 210. I don't know exactly what that is. 210 millimeters. Slightly over 8 inches. It is a full size bait. That was on purpose. See, Tim and I knew if we built a slightly smaller bait, more people would buy it. Because it's hard to convince somebody to throw a bait this big. But we wanted to force your hand as an angler. What I mean by that is if we built a smaller one, you would have thrown the smaller one. Maybe somewhere down the road we'll build one just because people want to, I don't know. But we didn't want to do that. We built this exact size because this is the size that we believe is the difference between a bait that will catch a lot of fish and a bait that will still catch a lot of fish, but will also catch an absolute freak of nature. It'll catch the giants. It is a big enough profile to catch the monsters. It pushes a big enough wake. It's got enough presence. There's enough going on there, and it's got big enough hooks once you hook them that you'll land that fish. So we intentionally made the bait a size where we would sell less baits, unfortunately, but the benefit would be that a guy would be willing to try a larger bait than he was comfortable with, and will ultimately catch his personal best on it as a result. We didn't want to build down to what people thought they wanted. We wanted to help guys go a little bigger, reach out a little bit farther, and as a result, catch those bigger fish. It's a very effective bait. Now, let me get down off my soapbox about our wake. I'm passionate about it because I think that it does a lot of things incredibly well, and we built it with very clear intention. But this is all about summer swim bait. So I'm gonna set this one down. Let's grab this guy right here. This bait from Bait Sanity, the tug, the antidote tug, is a cool bait. Looks like a glide bait. It's not. Well, I guess it is, but this is a topwater. This is a very unique profiled topwater walking bait. Topwater to just a hair subsurface. And once you learn the cadence and you learn how to play with it, it'll even be a topwater walking bait that will jump out of water. Super unique. This style of bait, for me, this will do all the above. Fishes super shallow, fishes cover very effectively, but can also fish way offshore. This is a bait that I'm going to use covering water. So early morning covering water or offshore fishing, pulling fish up off of big main lake structures. That wide glide covers a lot of water. It's a lot of commotion. It's a lot of racket going on, and it will pull fish to it. This is a very unique bait. It's got a cool weight transfer system in it. There's a bunch of tech inside this bait, but none of that matters to me as an angler. It probably doesn't matter to you as an angler. What matters is that it's a very large topwater walking bait that will get a monster bite in a very unique profile that the vast majority of fish have never seen. They've never seen full profiled walking baits with the ability to pop and jump out of the water when they're chasing it. I mean, really unique stuff. And it's got all sorts of cool stuff. Like there's a magnet in the back. You see this hook holding itself up. The fins that'll hold scent. I mean, there's a lot going on there, but it's a very unique topwater walking bait. Collectively, those are two really cool topwaters that will crush all summer long. Now, that said, let's set those aside. Let's talk boot tails. Because for me, there is nothing more effective on most days than the boot tail for summertime swim bait fishing. Whether I'm fishing shallow or deep. I've got a handful of baits here, but essentially I've got some shallow baits, similar places to like fish in the wake around docks, around cover, skipping into shadows. I've got a couple of baits where I do those sorts of things, a couple weedless type baits, and then my bread and butter baits, my deep water baits, jig hook baits, and that's it. Let's start with those jig hook baits, okay? First up, we've got the burrito. If I could only call one swim bait, soft swim bait for my summertime bass fishing, it's a burrito. This is the 5-inch, this is the 6-inch. These are both in the tactical shad color. That's a color that Tim and I designed. It's a very, very effective color, but there are some other good colors too, like crappie. There's the Who Dat color is a color I like a lot. But this is definitely the most universal color, that tactical shad. It's like a blend between electric shad. It's got that purple glitter in it, mated with like a Tennessee shad. We just crush with it. It's incredible. And again, the 5 and the 6 inch, that just comes down to what your fish are eating, right? If they're chasing big gizzards, that sort of a profile, I throw the 6. If they're chasing a lot of thread fins, or I'm not sure what they're chasing, I throw the 5. The 5 is a funny size because a 5-inch swimbait is not particularly large, but this one is tall. It's a true swimbait profile. So I've really had to find the right rod for it. I'll get to that. I had to find a specific rod that wasn't a true swimbait rod, but would peg those fish and get them in the boat, because that has turned out to just be, I mean, it's a deadly bait. I catch more fish on a 5-inch burrito than you can imagine. Just an amazing fish catcher. The other one, this one is brand new to you. Hopefully they're on Tackle. Today they're not on Tackle Warehouse, but in a couple days when you see this, hopefully they will be on Tackle Warehouse. I'll put a link, and hopefully that link actually goes to them. But this is an amazing bait that I've been playing with for a year. Josh St. John, JSJ Baits, is a good friend of ours. Josh has traveled with us through the years. He's been to South America with us. We've been fishing together forever, and he builds a ton of awesome baits, both hard baits and soft baits. But I have been at him to build this for years, and he did just an amazing job. This is the JSJ Loose Caboose. That's what he calls that bait. Great big, wide kick and tail, man. It is a very effective bait. Josh has never had a soft bait in that boot tail, wide thumping category, and he knocked it so far out of the park. This part of the profile might look familiar to you if you're familiar with his other baits. I used to throw a prototype bait of his years ago, and I had so many clients catch giants on it, and then that went away. He brought it back. He brought it back with the boot, and it's so good. So in the burrito, we've got the 5-inch and the 6-inch. Then the Loose Caboose is a 7-inch. All three of these baits can be fished shallow if you fish them quickly, but they can also be fished very effectively deep. Offshore fishing, counting them down on points, ledge fishing, all those summertime things. I'm fishing these very effectively from, say, 5 foot of water out to 10, 12 foot of water, but I'm fishing them super effectively between like 15 and 30, 35. They've got enough weight that they'll get down there, and then you can slow roll them along the bottom. And again, this particular profile in a 7-inch is an amazing size with an amazing kick to it. I mean, it's got some serious thump going on, and they crack it. So that's the JSJ Loose Caboose. And again, hopefully when you click the link, they're there. If not, they're gonna be there really, really soon. That is a project that we've been begging Josh to do. I'm so glad that he did it. And I think that's gonna help some people catch some monsters. Now, weedless baits, again, super simple. There's 2 times that I'm gonna throw the weedless bait. One is shallow around cover, okay? So say it's one thing when they're underneath the dock. I can throw these other baits in there. But if they're up in laydowns, I wanna go to something weedless. The other place is, let's say I'm fishing offshore. I love to throw that guy there. But say there's stumps and stuff out there, right? And it's just a mess to try and throw the jig hook, then I throw the weedless there as well. The trick there is you go to a heavy weedless. So like that Owner Beast hook, take this one out, put the 3/4, the 8/0 3/4 is the deal for summertime. So 2 hooks, 2 baits. This is the Megabass Mag Draft Freestyle. This is the Scottsboro Tackle. 6-inch, 6-inch or 7-inch, both great options. And then either the Owner Beast, or if I want it bladed, that BKK Titan Diver Plus. Now you can take that blade off too if you don't want it bladed. Of course, that'll just come off. But that BKK is an awesome hook. You can move the weight around. You can add a blade to it. You can go to heavier weights or lighter weights. It's really a cool hook. And then that Owner Beast, I mean, it's just completely tried and true. We've crushed them on that thing for years. But both very effective rigging for very effective baits. Megabass Mag Draft Freestyle and the Scottsboro Tackle Paddle Tail. Awesome baits. Then the last category is just gonna be that traditional boot tail treble hooked bait. Number one in that category is gonna be a Mag Draft. 6-inch or 8-inch, again, just depends on what your fish are eating, which profile you want. I catch a ton of fish on the 6. I catch some really, really big ones on the 8, even this time of year. They're gonna be super effective around docks, around cover, but you can also throw them out over open water, similar to the Wakebait, where we're just covering water out on the color line. You can do that with an 8-inch mag as well. That bait will just sit out there thumping that great big tail, drawing those fish up. It's really effective in the summertime. Now, one thing, the 6-inch, this is a new color. If you guys have been living under a rock, you didn't realize the Mag Draft came out in the 6-inch in 3 new colors, and all 3 of them are phenomenal. That's one of them. So I'll link those 3 colors for you as well, but very effective. When do I throw a 6 versus an 8? I throw the 6 more for smallmouth and spotted bass. I start with a 6 in those fisheries, then I'll try the 8. If I'm around a place where it's got big largemouth and I know that, I start with the 8. If I can't get it done, I go to the 6. That's the difference. So smallmouth and spotted bass, start with the 6, then go to the 8. Largemouth, start with the 8, go to the 6. The other one, big bite baits. You guys know that B5, the B5 is a bait that I crushed with last year. They came out with a bigger size at ICAST, the B6. And I really, really like this guy. That's the B6. Very simple bait. It's a line through. So here, these are fixed hooks on a swivel. This is a line through. So you put the line through the nose, tie it to your treble hook, stick that treble hook in the belly, and you're in business. This bait will fish deeper effectively. It's got more weight than the 6-inch Mag Draft. So this is fishing high in the column, this is fishing low in the column. That's the difference. Just depends where you're fishing. But again, swim bait fishing in the summertime is very simple. It is also very effective. The 3 places that I really see it shine for me is shallow around cover, offshore on the color line, and then offshore deep on structure. Be that ledge fishing, be that fishing tips of main lake points, crawling it over island tops out in open water. But those are the 3 places where I throw them. These are the baits that I throw. I keep it very, very simple. And again, you don't need all those. I gave you a couple baits in each category, so you had a choice. You had something you could try. But you can just go out there and blast them. I mean, a lot of times, I've got our wake tied on, I've got a burrito tied on, I've got the loose caboose tied on, and I go, period. And then if I get into a situation where I need to be skipping up under, I quick tie a Mag Draft on. But I don't complicate it. I'm not carrying 50 different baits. I'm not carrying 14 kinds of glide baits this time of year. I don't even need all that stuff in my boat. Keep it really simple in the summer. Now gear, you guys know how much we love that Loomis 966. That's a rod that does it all really, really well. I pair that up with a high-speed reel. Typically the Tranks 300 HG is what I throw with that big power handle on it, but I have been falling in love with that Calcutta Conquest MD with that power handle, low profiled metal reel with a big power handle on it. It's been super fun to fish with. But that 966 is my just bread and butter. For crushing hook sets with either a jig hook or with the big weedless hooks, that Zodius 7.9 extra heavy has been amazing for me this year. And I say that, it's also what I've been throwing the 8-inch Mag Draft, the standard Mag Draft on, with just incredible Well, I guess I'm gonna have to speed this up because it's so hot out here today that the camera is now overheating. It's not just me that's overheating. It's blazing. So that 7.9 extra heavy is an amazing option. On the budget side of things, the Savage Gear squad rods are phenomenal. That heavy is an amazing rod for throwing hard baits. I love throwing wake baits on that rod. Paired that up with that Concept A3 by 13 fishing. That's a killer combo. And then last but not least, I wanted to take a second and show you this. This is the combo that I throw the 5-inch burrito on, because again, that's an in-between size where it's a small bait, but it's a jig hook. You're talking about big fish and it weighs a lot. They throw it really easily, or at least they did until I got it on the right combo. Now they're dead. If they bite that thing, I've got them. This is the Shimano X-Pride 7.7 Heavy. There's a couple things about this rod. I really like throwing big worms on it. I like throwing big jigs on it. It is my bladed A-rig rod. So it's a multi-use rod. It's not just a swim bait rod by any means. But I found it to be the hands down best rod for throwing that 5-inch burrito. Pair it to the Bantam 65-pound braid. I typically throw the burrito on 20-pound leader. So 65-pound braid to 20-pound leader is what works best for that bait, and I never break them off. Such a killer combo. But that rod, again, is a multi-use rod, not a dedicated swim bait rod at all. Great for Texas rigging, great for jigs, great for a lot of different things, and just phenomenal for that 5-inch burrito. Guys, with that, we're gonna wrap it up. You can catch these big ones in the summertime. The one thing about the heart of summer is you can't select just big ones. If you go up and throw the wake, you're gonna catch 2 and 3 and 4 pounders, then you're gonna catch a monster. You go out deep, you start throwing these baits around, you'll catch 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and then you'll stick a random 11 pounder with a giant head and a sucked in belly. It's amazing how good these baits are this time of year at catching fish, not just catching a single monster fish. That's what makes them so fun. Get out there, keep slinging those big baits, throw the right baits in the right places, and you will have success. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.